Thank you very much. And both Deputy Borough President Diana Rain and I are extremely excited about this portion of our capital project. It's something that Diana has really pushed on the whole issue around affordable housing. And so we just really want to thank our partners in government because we don't do this alone. When we reach out to our city council personnel, our state personnel, joined here by my good friend and colleague that really helped me transition in politics, Senator Martin DeLon. His son is not here, the assemblyman. But it's about how do we come together, identify the issues on the ground, and utilize our resources together to solve the problem. And so we have a great team, Jamani Williams, Councilman Mark Traeger, who I always like to just give a special acknowledgement to because he is the delegation leader for the borough. He's the person at the table who is fighting for everything that Brooklyn needs, and you did a fantastic job this year for the borough of Brooklyn as our delegation leader. You know, we also want to acknowledge who's not here, Councilman Espinal, who's also a great partner around this issue around affordable housing. Some of our partners who are here in this field of affordable housing, it's just so important to acknowledge their presence. Fifth Avenue Committee, I'm a fan of Fifth Avenue Committee and what they do each year. Crown Gardens Housing Corporation, Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation, Rogers Avenue HDFC, and my good friend George, who's here from the Doe Fund, and what he's doing with men every day as they transition back into life. George, thank you for what you're doing. Contello Tower, we could clap for that, George. Contello Towers, number 2, Local Development Corporation of East New York, Highland Terrace Incorporation, Mahoney Management Incorporation, Ismini is here with that, Howard Houses Tenant Council. So $3 million we are putting into our housing plan. And some people would say, well, $3 million don't seem like a lot. Then you know what? You should ask some of the people who are here. These dollars are, one, the starting point to ignite this spark that gives forward the flame of ensuring that people can have the home and the ability to live. Other lending sources look at these dollars and see that there's a commitment coming from government. They're more inclined to do so. And in many cases, they're the dollars that take these projects to the next level. And so it serves a vital role. And I can't do that just from being in Borough Hall. I must do that by talking to my local electeds and ask them what is on the ground, what do we need to do, and how do we make that happen. That's the reason why we are in this community today, because I'm not going to be a downtown borough president. There's one Brooklyn, and all of Brooklyn must prosper from what this borough has to offer, and nothing is more important than housing. When you look at the reports that have come out, Brooklyn has the title of being the most unaffordable place to live. That is an amazing title to have. And if we don't have these partners who are ensuring that we hold on to these affordable units, and not only go into new construction, but how do we retrofit? And how do we ensure that we take existing projects and give them the resources they need to sustain themselves. And it's about 10 and 15 and 5 and 6 projects at a time. The hemorrhaging of units do not happen instantly. It happens as small increments. And just as those hemorrhaging happens as small increments, the retention and rebuilding must also happen at those small increments on the ground, on the blocks, from the Logan Streets to the Lefferts Gardens. We must ensure that it continues to happen. So affordable housing is important to us. I produced a report over the year, Housing Brooklyn, a roadmap to real affordable housing for Brooklynites. Look at some of the low-hanging fruit, some of the things we can do instantly, like putting money into NYCHA so we don't warehouse houses, but put some money in there to renovate those apartments that are waiting, non-traditional, undeveloped locations to build. enact real policy changes to look at affordable units. And so our dollars today is going to some great projects, $750,000 to Mahoney Management for the renovation, construction of affordable, am I pronouncing that right? Manny Management for renovation, construction of affordable housing units. $500,000 to preserve 77 units across Bushwick, Crown Heights, and East New York. $250,000 to construct new affordable housing for the Pacific Limwood project. $500,000 to the Fifth Avenue Committee to build 100% affordable housing in Sunset Park, which is clearly becoming unaffordable, and we want to hold on to that. $300,000 to Crown Heights, to Crown Gardens Housing Complex. $500,000 to Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation. Right, Delon?
Yes, sir.
60 environmentally sustainable affordable units. $250,000 to Rogers Avenue HDFC Doe Fund to help build the Crystal Tower development. $238,000 for energy retrofits. $500,000 to Local Development Corporation of East New York, and the list goes on with a few more, but it's just important to know that together we can reach the success of really retaining, rebuilding, and sustaining an affordable lifestyle for those throughout the borough of Brooklyn. Right here in this community, East New York property value tripled last year. And so we must make sure that these communities continue to be affordable for the residents who made it possible. When these residents were waking up to gunshots and not alarm clocks, they stayed. They defended this community, they held on to the communities of Brooklyn, and they must have a part of Brooklyn's future. The popularity of our brand must turn into prosperity for all Brooklynites, and that starts with housing. That's how we do it and make it happen. So I want to call up my partner in this pursuit of affordable housing, Deputy Borough President Diana Rayner, followed by my good friend Senator Martin DeLon, and then our delegation leader, Mark Traeger.
Thank you, Borough President Adams. This is an exciting opportunity for housing developers across the borough, working with our office, our local elected officials, to be able to really put our money where our mouth is. This affordable housing crisis cannot be done with one action. It is the cumulative effort of making sure that we're looking at the spectrum of what we built out and rehabbed 20, 30 years ago, and how do we continue to have them be in the pipeline with efficiency for sustainability. Manny is a great example of this effort. They have this particular building we are having this press conference beside was actually retrofitted 25 years ago. And the opportunity to be able to then come back and reinvest and provide efficiencies so that Ms. Rodriguez, who has welcomed us into her home, is able to continue to afford this particular unit. We are talking about affordable rents that once upon a time existed in Brooklyn just a mere 10 years ago at $600 to $800 for a 2-bedroom. And we have seen a spike in rents that is unforgiving. And we have to continue to unveil what is occurring, this artificial market of understanding where did we go wrong. These are the partners that we want to continue to invest with to make sure that we preserve affordable housing in its truest form. When we have 100,000 people on a waiting list with NYCHA, waiting for an apartment opportunity, it is no mistake that we're not building for 100,000 people waiting for affordable housing. That is where we have to turn this situation on its head. And Borough President Adams is committed to making sure that we're going to continue to hit the pavement and continue to work with affordable housing developers who are committed to making sure that we're building at all spectrums. We don't want to have families fall off the cuff for $1 or $1,000 because they make too much or too little. Those are the families that need this most. And that is how you build the middle class in New York City. Thank you, Borough President Adams, and to everyone here.
Good morning, Senator DeLon, and I am pleased to join Eric Adams, our Borough President, my former colleague in the State Senate, and all my colleagues in government and all the organizations that recognize the importance of preserving affordable housing here in Cypress Hills and East New York. And on behalf of our mutual constituents, I want to thank and congratulate the Borough President for recognizing the importance of affordable housing and preserving it. And with the advent of rezoning here in our community, it's important that we recognize that affordable housing is very important to ensure that the lifelong residents that have lived here, have been the pillars of our community, can continue to afford to live here and ensure that broken promises do not occur here in our community as it has in Williamsburg and in Bushwick. And we're going to work together to ensure that that happens. So thank you again.
Thank you, the Borough President. I told him we're pretty far from Coney Island right now, but I still feel the Brooklyn love. I want to thank him and Deputy Borough President Reyna. I want to thank my colleagues here as well in government in particular as well. Thank you, Senator DeLon. And we have Councilman Williams, who is the chair of the City Council's Housing Committee, who has done a phenomenal job of highlighting the needs and getting stuff done. So thank you, Councilman Williams, and Councilman Espinal as well. If this is your area, he's been a fierce advocate for his district. I want to say that when we talk about housing and our housing needs, and I just want to first give a shout out to the Borough President because he really has, and I think my colleagues will agree, he has transformed Borough Hall into a platform for advocacy on Brooklyn's most pressing needs. And for that, he deserves a big round of applause for his leadership on that. But when we talk about housing and our housing needs here in Brooklyn and all of our neighborhoods, many times I hear about the needs of New Yorkers that'll be moving in 20, 30 years from now. Our concern are the needs of the New Yorkers who are here today. The people who have been through thick and thin, who are struggling to get by, check to check, to survive, to make ends meet. Those are our concerns, and those are our obligations to respond to the residents of today. While we're building and planning for the future, our main obligation is to make sure that the residents, as the Borough President mentioned, who have been through these neighborhoods, through challenging times and through prospering times, that they share in the prosperity and the growth of their neighborhoods. And just to give you one example of what we're doing here, at least in my district, High Lawn Terrace, which was a City Mitchell-Lama complex in Gravesend, Brooklyn. They are required to comply with Local 11 work, which is very costly. And thanks to the partnership with the Borough President and my office, we're able to secure them $600,000 to do that work, which will offset the cost to the shareholders in High Lawn Terrace. Who are the people who live there? They are your teachers, they are your nurses, they are the workforce here of New York City that really have seen wages stagnate and flatline, but the cost of living skyrocket. That's what this is about, helping real people survive financially in a city that they were born and raised in, where they want to send their children to our schools and to grow and prosper as well. This is a team effort, and Borough President, thank you for helping lead our team.
Thank you, man. And it's so important. You really can't say housing in the city without saying Jumaane Williams. The fight that Councilman Williams, as the chair of housing, on all aspects of protecting and renovating and rebuilding affordable housing. He has done an unbelievable job on doing so. And so I want to call the councilman, our last three speakers, the Councilman Williams, my good friend and former colleague in the state and now in the city council, Councilman Espinal, and from the Doe Fund, my good friend George. Councilman Williams.
Thank you to the Borough President and all my colleagues, the Senator, my colleagues in the City Council. How long do I have before I have to head out? That's been I don't know how long my pass is for. But this is exciting, and I want to thank the Borough President for highlighting the issues of affordable housing, or as I like to say, income-targeted housing, because affordable means a lot of things to different people. And $3 million is a lot of money. Particularly, we have to put it in context, there's not a lot of money to go around in the Borough President's capital ability. So the fact that he would take $3 million, I think, says a lot and shows the importance of affordable housing. And for me, it's a much bigger issue. When we look at issues of public safety and gun violence in the city, we look at the communities that suffer the most. There are some things that are usually the same. There is either unemployment, underemployment, the educational system is not what it should be, and the housing is usually depressed. There's usually not enough housing to go around, and the housing that is available many times is not a place that you would want to live. And so we have to attack these issues holistically to get to another one, and housing is a critical component when it comes to that. And so it's critically important that we just don't talk about it, but we also be about it, and that we put our money where our mouth is. And as was mentioned, Brooklyn is blowing up big in brand, but not all of Brooklyn is feeling the warmth and that love, and we want to make sure that all of Brooklyn feels it. And so I applaud the Borough President for making sure that no part of Brooklyn is forgotten, that no part of Brooklyn feels that they are not as good as any other part of Brooklyn. And it is important that we have quality, income-targeted housing. No one in Brooklyn should be working full-time and not be able to find a place to live. That is absurd in the city that we live in. That is absurd in Brooklyn with the great strides that it's making. So I'm just glad that I can be a part of what the Borough President is doing. I'm glad that we were able to partner in my district with Crystal Towers and the Dope Fund, and I look for a much more partnership going forward. And it shows that no one person can do this. It takes us all to be dedicated to this. Thank you.
Right. Well said.
Good morning. I really want to thank the Borough President. I want to thank Senator DeLon, Councilman Williams, and Councilman Traeger for being here. But, you know, the Borough President has been a friend, and this is not the first time I see him here in the district. He has been out making sure that needy New Yorkers, needy Brooklynites are getting the services and the allocation that they need and deserve. We're in East New York, the heart of the mayor's rezoning plan, where we're looking to see over 3,000 affordable housing units come in the next 15 years. But he's not wasting any time. He's saying we need affordable housing today. So I'm really happy he's here making these investments, Mr. Borough President. It's always a pleasure. Look forward to seeing more affordable housing in East New York, so the families who live here making $30,000, $40,000 a year have a place to live. Right. Let me tell you, in a few years, East New York is not going to be the East New York you see today. It's going to be the place where everyone is going to want to live, where everyone's going to want to be. But we're going to make sure that the people who helped bring East New York to where it is today stays here to see those that come into fruition. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
George, you're going to close this. Hold on for one moment. You're going to close this out. First, I want to get a representative from Manny, and then you can close this out. Ms. Ismini from Manny is going to. Okay, who is? Okay. And then, George, you close this out.
I'm okay. I'm good.
Shamani knows people all over the place.
Oh,
That's good.
okay, good morning, welcome, and thank you for joining us this morning. A special thank you to Brooklyn Borough President, Mr. Eric Adams.
Thank you.
Welcome. For choosing East New York and Imani Building to discuss his commitment to affordable housing. In my estimation, you have picked the perfect spot. I am Lorna Blake, a resident of the building owned by Mutual Housing Association of East New York, better known as Manny, at 171 Milford Street, around the corner, right over in the back there, over 20 years. I am a member of Manny Board of Director and also a member of New York Community for Change and chair of East New York chapter. Manny owned and managed 75 buildings in East New York, Brownfields, Bushwick, and Crown Heights. Most of the apartments have 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms, and the rent are affordable. And I will stress on it, and the rent are affordable to family with income at or below $2,000 for a family of 4. Manny is a non-profit organization committee for housing low and moderate income, hard-working New Yorkers. Most Manny residents work hard at job, sometimes more than one job, but often jobs that don't pay a living wage, and everyone knows that. If it were not for money, I and many other member residents be homeless. And I could talk on my behalf, because before I met this organization, I was almost homeless. I have nowhere to live. Staying by a family member who told me I have to leave. I have nowhere to go. I saw a flyer saying apartment for rent. So I was so anxious and determined, I thought I was going to get the apartment right away. But it comes with, there's a requirement you have to do. And I stayed in this organization, which I joined, and I have no regrets, because I could afford to put food on my table, send my daughter to college, and still could afford to pay my rent. Okay? So to keep in low income, hard-working and New Yorkers safely, decently and affordable houses is a bless and relief, and the result of a real commitment to the residents of the building and East New York. This commitment has become particularly crucial and as neighborhood gentrified and rent skyrocket. You can imagine after 25 years, the Manny building need upgrade. True. And some rehabilitation and old system. Often repairs come with increased rent that put the people who lives in the building at risk of eviction. True. Or at risk of paying too much of their mortgage income towards rent. The Borough President and the City Council commitment of $500,000 towards the rehab cost of the Manny building goes a long way to help offset any rent increase that will burden current and future Manny residents. The Borough President commitment, in words and with dollars attached, will ensure that Manny can keep its commitment to current residents and low-income New Yorkers. On behalf of all the Manny residents, we want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here. Thank you so much.
You know, we often hear about the affordable housing conversation, and we just look at numbers. But this is a real story. You know, someone that went from the potentiality of homelessness to empowerment, and now feeding with her young girl being able to go to college. These are real stories, and that's why we don't want government to get so far removed from these real stories and real lives. Congratulations to you. We're going to close with my good friend George. George, close us out.
I'm George McDonald, the founder of the Doe Fund, and I would like to say, Eric Adams! Eric Adams! Eric Adams!
Stephen, any questions? If no questions, we want to take a group photo. Yes. Come on up. We'd like to hear from the ground.
This is the expert.
Hear from the ground.
So thanks for asking. I'm Yasmini Spiliotis. I'm the Executive Director of Mahani Mutual Housing Association, and we really welcome you to our home today. And we thank the Borough President and the Council for all of your support, both in words and financially. So the way it works in preservation is, as Lorna said, after 25 years, you could imagine that some of the systems in the buildings need upgrading. So you need a new roof, you might need a new heating system, new windows. And so the building, and you're welcome actually, just so you know, the residents have opened their home and you're welcome to come inside, and the doors open on the side there after the conference. So what happens is you have to rehab the building, but you don't, there's no way, even with the Borough President's commitment, even with HPD's subsidy commitment, to be able to actually do the rehab that a 25 or 30-year-old building needs without private money, and private money needs to be paid back. And so what happens when you talk about preservation is, if you're not careful, if the Borough President doesn't show up with money, then what happens is when you rehab the building, then suddenly what you need to be able to repay that loan is actually completely not kind of in sync with the income and the rent that the people who currently live in those buildings can afford. So the goal then is, with the money that the Borough President, the City Council, and HPD come in, that come in at 0% interest, that come in but sit on the building, come in, they allow the organization to take all of that money, put it into the rehab, and maintain the rents at levels that the current residents, so people making 25, 35, 45,000, as Councilman Espinal said, can afford to stay in their homes. Not just them, and then let's say they move out, and let's say they get, they're able to buy a home or something, that unit then becomes available to another person at 25, 35, or 45,000. So the commitment is today, and protecting people today, but it directly relates to keeping the rents affordable while actually recapitalizing the investment, as Borough President Diana Reyna said, to re-up a building that's now 30 years old. So.
Well said. Well said. You want to add?
Uh,
Well said.
The other point I want to make sure you mention, preservation is a lot more cost effective than construction. And you always have to remember, we will never be able to build faster than the units that we're losing in terms of affordability. And so any housing plan that does not focus on preservation is not a real housing plan. So it's always, we have to make sure we remember that point.
I'm sorry?
When's construction supposed to start and finish?
Do we have a project here that's being constructed?
October.
Well, there are various times.
Yeah, because there's various
Usually
buildings.
18 months.
When is your project starting?
Approximately October.
October.
It's usually 24 months.
George you shared with us is normally 24 months.
So it's safe to say most of them will start in the fall?
I would hope so.
That is the expectation.
Yes.
And any timeline for completion?
Well, as George just stated, it's normally about 2 years in completion. As long as we get the Department of Building to move at the right rate.
Very well said.
Okay? We'll- Boy, my outfit being good. Very good.
Thank you very much. Eric is going to take you care of his baby son.
I know my head.